Hi everyone, this is Anand Kuti. I'm the Director of Solution Engineering at Pathlock. I've been with the company a little over 3 years and in the security industry, primarily focused on cybersecurity around SAP for the last 10 plus years. Today, our agenda is to go over why is SAP applications crucial. A lot of people who are joining the call, if you have not used SAP application, I'm going to give you more insight into why SAP ERP applications are considered crucial. And at the same time, we'll also give you insight into who would target an SAP application and how would they target it and what are their motives, right? And we'll also give you insight into what is a vulnerability management and how Pathlock can kickstart your vulnerability management, the importance of vulnerability management, and you will get insight into how Pathlock can give you the kickstart if you don't have one for SAP today. And who would be interested in this vulnerability management reports, I'll give you insight into it as well, and then some key takeaways and wrap up. So this would be our session today. So let's get right into it. Before I jump in, I just want to give you a little insight into who Pathlock is. Pathlock has been in the industry 15 plus years. We have 20 plus advisors and threat analysts dedicated. Today, using Pathlock cyber application controls, we have 5,000 plus production instances secured, and we have an award-winning product and over 1,300 customers securing their SAP application using Pathlock cyber application controls. Couple of quick things here. Why is SAP critical? This is a fact sheet that has been generated by SAP. This is something that you can Google it today and look it up. Now, because SAP is a publicly traded company, obviously all this information is in the public domain. The reference link is right below here. As you could see, one thing that's staggering is $46 trillion of the commerce transactions go through SAP. Now, why is SAP critical? This is one of the reasons SAP is critical. The other reasons why SAP is critical is that you have 99 of 100 largest companies in the world are SAP customers. 99. So putting this in perspective, right? A lot of companies are using SAP for their core business processes, like order to cash, procure to pay, financials, whatnot, right? So the core business processes are running on SAP, and SAP is most critical because a lot of organizations are using it. Now, if you put your cybersecurity hat on it, and if you're a threat actor, these are the different kinds of threat actors, but if you put a threat actor hat on it, if you are trying to penetrate into a global organization with billions of dollars in revenues, and if they are running SAP, when you enter their DMZ, you wouldn't go out there and try to figure out what other applications they have, but they will go straight to an SAP system. That's what these threat actors are doing. And it's known, this has been published multiple times that there are different kind of threat actors depending on their motives. So first thing we'll do here is trying to get insight into who the threat actors are. You have nation state actors, threat actors. Basically, these are the people who are very sophisticated. The reason I say that is because these are sponsored by the governments. So national state actors have a lot of money, a lot of resources, and a lot of tools at their disposal to attack any system. You have cyber criminals. Their motives are different, but you have cyber criminals who try to just get quick benefit out of your ERP system. You have hackers, you have insider threats. Insider threats are people who are mostly disgruntled and employees who just want to take benefit of the loosely controlled ERP systems. Their motivations, as you could see, I have mapped those motivations as well. These are the threat actors on the left-hand side, as you could see. On the right-hand side, you have the motivations that they have. This geopolitical, as I said, if it's a national state-sponsored, there's geopolitical motivations behind it. Cyber criminals have profits behind it, and just want to get in and get out, selling the data that they have got through this attack that they performed. Hackers are mostly ideologists. Insider threats are, it could be just a thrill-seeking people just trying to say, you know what, let me see what I can do by penetrating into my system and doing things that I'm not supposed to do. Or they're disgruntled employees who, with the whole economy going on a tilt, there could be a disgruntled employee who just wants to do things that are not right. Now, the outcomes of these things are, it can fall into extortion, it could be fraud, it could be sabotage, it could be espionage, it could be theft. Again, what I'm trying to lay down is that, your SAP system is very critical because you are running some of the core business processes on your SAP application. The next thing I'm trying to highlight is that, there are a lot of kinds of threat actors out there. Depending on their motivation, these people fall into different buckets: national state, cyber criminals, hacktivists, and insider threats. Now, the outcomes of these attacks are in the right-hand side. As you could see, it's extortion or fraud. So it's important to secure your ERP system. Now, how do you secure it is where my next slide is. It's about having vulnerability management. People might say, oh, I have access governance in place, I have risk rule sets in place, I have certifications in place. It is all important to have them in place. I'm not saying, I'm not discrediting anything on that you have today, but it's also important to make sure if you are put a threat actor hat on yourself, if you're not going to get into your system through the straightforward means like opening up your front door and getting into your home, but they will try to figure out other loopholes in the system and try to penetrate through it. Vulnerability management is nothing but a continuous and proactive and automated process that keeps your SAP application safe from cyber attacks. It's not a one-time assessment that you need to perform. A lot of organizations put security behind. It's not in the front end of it, but security is always the back burner. But guess what? Cybersecurity is not even a burner for that reason. So here, what we are trying to highlight is that make sure your security is there in place, but you also take care of your cybersecurity. Within the cybersecurity, you have this vulnerability management. Basically, what it is that you're trying to assess your system periodically, not just one time, point-in-time assessments. Point-in-time assessment will not solve the problem. This whole, this discredits the whole purpose of the cybersecurity. You have to have tools and products in place, and that can do continuous assessments on your platform and put monitoring controls in place. Now, I want to introduce this term. If you are not familiar with it, there's something called attack surface. Now, we heard SAP is critical. We know the threat actors are against coming to attack this SAP application, and we know that vulnerability management is you need to have some cybersecurity controls in place in order for you to protect your system, and one of them is vulnerability management. Now, if you're a threat actor, what you try to do, and this is where vulnerability management really comes into life, is that what you try to do is you try to penetrate your system through different loopholes in the system. Probably your front door is unlocked, and obviously we can get through it. But guess what? There are other ways to get into it. It could be your through your garage, through your roof hatches, windows, doors, and whatnot. So there are different mechanisms in which someone is trying to penetrate into your system. So it's always important for you to make sure all the areas there where you think there are loopholes, unless you identify what those loopholes are, there's no way you can patch them. But it's important to identify those loopholes and patch them periodically. That is the reason why vulnerability management is critical, because it's not it's a continuous assessment that will tell you what is the loopholes in the system, so that if a threat actor comes in, you have already prepared and you have patched your system, or you putting compensating controls in place. Let me go to the next slide now. Now, how Pathlock can help. Pathlock has a unique solution called cyber application controls. What it does is that we give you multiple layers of protection. Not only will give you role-based approach to make sure you have risk-free users in the system and roles are designed in an optimized way, but we also have the second layer, which is ABAC. Ultimately, the roles are designed to protect the data itself. So we do have ABAC controls on top of it. And then you have vulnerability management on top of it. You have threat detection on top of it. All these unique capabilities, Pathlock is the only solution that can offer this in the market. Not just giving you threat detection and vulnerability management, but we also have ABAC, and we have also a way to optimize your roles to make sure they're risk-free, SOD risk-free. So that's where Pathlock comes into life. Now, our approach is if you don't have a vulnerability management in place, this is my advice, having spent a good amount of time in this industry. First thing you have to identify is how many production systems you have in your system, how many non-production systems you have in your system. Because you will be surprised when you ask this question to your security teams, they won't have an answer right away, but they will start looking up and trying to figure out how many systems you have. But it's important to have it in your fingertips and understand once you have identified and you have made a checklist of all the systems, you should need to understand how these systems are all interconnected, like a topology, like a blueprint, trying to understand how these systems are all connected. If these systems, these SAP applications that we're talking about are interconnected, you also need to see what are the third-party systems this SAP application is connected to. Now, SAP cannot work in silo. SAP and ERP system, obviously, at some point you have to connect to a payroll system or a bank or something on those lines. So it's important to understand if you have active connections and if there are data that is exfiltrated from your SAP system, you need to make sure those connections are secure and the banks that you're working are still something that you're still doing business with, right? So identifying your system, making sure all the connections that you have today are indeed verified. Now, once you have marked your system, all the applications, that's when you start doing the assessments. This is where Pathlock can come into play, and we can also do assessment using one of your central instance to all the satellite instances. We have customers ranging from 3 production instances to all the way to 200 production instances. The point here is that we can do that without having additional hardware. We're a native solution. What we do is we can do an assessment across the board. We have 4,000 assessment scans that we can provide that you can assess across your applications. Now, you don't need to be a pen tester or an expert in cybersecurity, right? Even with 10 years of experience, if someone provides me a tool that can automate this process, guess what? I would take it. I wouldn't wait for me to go through each and every check. It will probably take years for me to do one check, a set of checks, like 4,000 checks, a year for me to go through all the checks. But here we have a tool that can automatically run and provide you reports around it. When we say reports, when we are talking about trying to give you insight into what is the current state, which is within the report, the targets, the initial state of the system is provided, where we provide information around what is the criticality of the vulnerabilities that we have found, what is the business impact if you don't try to patch that particular vulnerability, because a lot of times what happens is a security person who's working in your organization probably finds vulnerabilities, probably escalates it, but guess what? The business might say it's okay for us to keep that vulnerability, but someone has to sign off on it. This is where Pathlock will give you the ability to sign off and accept the risk so that someone can put their name on it. And because when you're putting the name on it, you read the fine text there that says this is the business impact. So we're closing the loop by providing the criticality, we're providing the business impact, we're trying to provide you the solution. You're the foot on the ground and you're trying to patch that particular vulnerability. You don't need to do the homework. Pathlock has automatically done the homework and providing you the information you need in order for you to close that particular vulnerability. So the entire loop of information is available so that you can continuously progress towards a secure environment. We can do that assessments across the board. That means we can do system assessment, which is misconfigurations, missing patches, communication channels. We can also do assessments around your transports. The transports are moving from your dev system to production system. We have seen all kinds of craziness that goes from dev to production system. It's important to make sure the truck, that's literally a truck in SAP, we open up the truck to see what are the objects that are being carried to the production environment. In my experience, I spoke to a lot of basis people. A lot of people focus on, rev track or charm, trying to push the transport from dev system to the production system. But what they do is that they do transport management. What we do here at Pathlock is mostly into trying to identify what's in the transport that is malicious that is going to production environment. We also have what you call as custom code assessment. You would be surprised when you have a developer that is moving code to a production environment. It's important to understand what's inside the code. And all these things that we talked about, your RBAC, role-based security, ABAC, attribute-based security, threat detection, vulnerability management, all that is great. But guess what? If your developer is trying to push something into your production environment, you absolutely need to have insight into it. And the industry standard is peer review. That means, hey, here's my friend. I'm going to give you my code. Just review it and tell them that it's all good so they can get the job done. But one thing that you need to understand is peer review is very manual in nature, and that is not scalable. Here, it's important to understand what's the security impact of it, what is the compliance impact of it, what is the performance impact of it. These are the areas that we hit on to make sure you reach a state which is clean state and optimized state of security. Now, and you have compensating controls. This is where Pathlock also comes into play. We have it's a cycle. So we have compensating controls because everything said and done, someone is not going to do their job, and you can't just expose your system. This is where the compensating controls come into play. We continuously monitor your system. We have over 1,500 signatures are provided out of the box with Pathlock that will make sure we monitor your system if someone is external or internal is trying to access a sensitive areas in the system that you want to get alert for. So we do system assessment, custom code assessment, transport assessment, and threat detection. That is how we go full cycle to make sure your system is secure, and we kickstart your vulnerability management project or initiative. If you don't have one, reach out and we're more than happy to help out. And this is all done without having additional hardware through an add-on, a certified add-on that we can provide to you from SAP. Now, this is just a glimpse of a dashboard. As you could see, we have an executive dashboard. We also have detailed input, output from that vulnerabilities that we talked about, not just throwing you that there's a vulnerability, but we'll also give you the priority around it. On the right-hand side, you can see the details associated with it, not just telling you that, oh, here is a vulnerability, here's a priority, but guess what? that means there's still a lot of work with the foot on the ground. So for the security folks, we do provide all the information for them to patch that particular vulnerability as well. Now, let's just go into the benefits for different audience. If you look at executives, they don't understand SAP lingo. The executives, I mean, a lot of times the executives we are dealing with, they have an overarching responsibility, but they don't talk SAP lingo. They want SAP systems to be secure. They have 100 other systems that they want, applications that they want us to secure. Now, for executives, we provide them what you call as a high-level overview that gives you insight into what is your current posture of your system. Is it secure? Is it not secure? Is it like what kind of state is it? We have a gauge meter that we can provide, and this is a small screenshot of it over here. So the point is we gave you a gauge meter that will provide you that information. We also give the risk prioritization, and we also give you the business impact, and in that way, as an executive, that's all you need. You want to know, is your system secure? Is the SAP application secure? The second thing is, what is the business impact of whatever issues that have been found? What are those issues, and who's working on it? That is all you need to know, so that you can go back to your team, your security team, the basis team, or whoever that person is, to have a good, educated dialogue, rather than trusting people that they're doing their job. Here is a way to verify your system. This is a huge issue in the market space. As a security team, we are providing you not just the vulnerability, as I said, we give you all the information around it. We'll give you what are the critical vulnerabilities that you have across your landscape. One thing I can tell you right now is that a lot of people focus on production environments. Non-production environments are always, again, the back burners. The reason it is because they think that production is where the data sits and all that. But guess what? There's so many instances we can show you where your non-production environment is indeed connected to your production environment. That means if you put your cybersecurity hat on yourself, that non-production environment can be a weak link for someone to penetrate from your non-production environment to a production environment and exploit your system. So it's important to look at all the systems at the same priority, although you can tag them and all that, but it's end of the day, you have to make sure there's no critical vulnerabilities are there in your non-production environment. So idea is that we will give you the complete 360 degrees view of all the systems, all the vulnerabilities, all the priorities around, all the business impact around it, so that you can start working on it, or you can make certain people who are reporting to you or the SI partners who are working for you to get the job done. We have development managers. I did talk about it briefly at the beginning. The idea is that we not only evaluate the code for vulnerabilities, the security vulnerabilities, but we also look for compliance and performance. Now, recently I spoke to a prospect. They have an S4HANA system, which is a greenfield implementation. Guess what? 1 year into it, they're already talking about this S4HANA, the latest and greatest from SAP, is slowing down. Why is it slowing down? It is not the problem of the software itself, but the problem is that the code, the custom code they started building, they have about, right away, they have about 600,000 to 800,000 of custom code, custom code developed. And one of the code that has been developed by a developer, we identified that it is looping more than it needs to, and it's slowing down the programs and then slowing down the entire system. So this is kind of taking away a lot of resources. So it is important before you move something to your production environment and then later on visit and then later on fix the issue. It is important to be proactive and figure out the problem ahead of time. It always helps, right? So this is where we are not only looking at the security side of it, we are looking at the compliance, we are looking at the performance side of it, and the last thing is the basis team. End of the day, they play their own the role as well. The basis team have to get things done, fix the issues that they have been found. Either it could be your SAP gateway or RC gateway has an asterisk there, and if some you want to just take care of the ACL files and whatnot, right? So it's important for them to get all the information they need. Instead of they're doing the research, we're trying to give them all the information. Basis and security go hand in hand. Sometimes there is no basis, there's only security team, and sometimes there's no security, there's basis team doing all the job. Depending on the size of the organization, it can vary. But in my experience, one thing I can tell you is that risk definition varies from team to team, and also each team are working in silos. That means a basis team person would not, a security team person would not understand what's inside the code, because that's not their expertise. There's no way they will understand what's inside a baddie, what's inside an include, what is this guy putting in the program. The same way, whatever the security team is designing today would not be something that a business user would understand. The business user says, you know what, did you deploy this patch? Did you put the right configuration? Did you check the baseline and all that? But the security team can go back and say, you know what, I'm doing everything that you're asking me to do. We are on top of it. And guess what? There's only trust. There is no verification. If you go with a zero trust approach, it's important to verify what's been done so that you can have a dialogue with your security teams and basis teams. So everyone is working in silos. This is where Pathlock is coming in and bridging the gap between different teams. Now, the final takeaways from this session. The first thing I want to make sure is that we are all on the same page. SAP ERP applications are very, very crucial for your business. And as much as you know it, the bad people out there, the threat actors, they also know that SAP is crucial for your business. They are coming, they are trying to attack the system, they're trying to look for the patch Tuesdays. There is a quote I heard from someone in the market recently. They said after every patch Tuesday, there's exploit Wednesday coming out, because SAP is releasing these patches with all the information that you need to know about that particular application that it has that vulnerability. And as a threat actor, he doesn't want to reinvent the wheel. They just want to take the patch and look at the application, look at the version, look at the particular issue where it impacts and what the impact could be, and then developing an exploit. So SAP is critical. Threat actors are indeed coming against. The US government is also alerting on it. Now, as far as you kicking off your vulnerability management initiatives within your organization, the recommendation in general is that identify your critical systems and blueprint them. Understand how they are interconnected. Understand what are the third-party systems that you're connected to. Once you know the application, that's when you can protect something. If you don't know what you don't know, how do you protect, right? So once you have that clarity about what are those applications, then you start tagging them. As I said, you can have certain priority systems, like tag them as your production system, finance system, whatever system you want to tag, whatever tags that you think are relevant for your organization, you can tag them. Conduct regular assessment. One-time assessment is not going to help. One-time assessment will give you an insight into what is the current state of it, but a lot of things can change the very next day. How do you protect it? So it is important to make sure you have a product that can regularly assess the system and give you results around it. The assessment, as I described, can vary from the system assessment, the custom code assessment, the transport assessment, and also having a threat detection always helps. Always try to, the recommendation in general is, and whenever we find a critical finding, have some kind of remediation in place or some sort of mitigation in place. But don't ignore that warnings that have been sent by the tool. At the end of the day, the tool only can tell you there is an issue, but you are the one who have to go fix it. Yeah. The last thing is implementing the compensating controls. This is what I was trying to adhere to. Like, you can, all these alerts and everything are great, but if you are not patching your system in time or fixing the issue vulnerability in time, it's also important to make sure you have this compensating controls that will continuously monitor your system. That's how you protect your system and initiate vulnerability management initiative within your organization, or cyber initiative in your organization that is targeted for SAP applications. I hope that was helpful. Stephanie, you're there.
Thank you, Anid. Again, if you have any questions, please add them now to the questions box, and we would be happy to answer any of those. Our first question is, are there any limitations to what SAP applications you cover using Pathlock?
So that's a very good question. We don't have any limitations for any native ERP applications, SAP ERP applications, right? I mean, as a native, One thing that changed over time is that SAP started acquiring a lot of companies, the cloud-based companies. We don't have coverage for the cloud-based SaaS offerings like in Concur or Fieldglass, but we do have coverage for your BTP. You have coverage for S4HANA, Solution Manager, GRC, BW, you name it, we have it. All the core application we do have coverage today.
Okay, great. Our next question is, how are you different from other vendors in the market?
A very good question. I was emphasizing that during my presentation as well. We at Pathlock offer what we call as cyber application controls. Within the cyber application controls, we have both the threat detection and risk prevention modules. Threat detection is all about what we just talked about, the vulnerability management, but one thing that is uniquely differentiates us from the other vendors in the market space is that we do have what we call the risk prevention, putting controls around the data itself. It's like a second layer of protection. Think of it this way, if you are in a house, you lock the front door, doesn't mean you'll open the safe open with the crown jewels, right? The data, right? So you will have controls around the data itself. So this is where we at Pathlock are unique, have a unique capability to put controls around the data using attribute-based access control. So that's what differentiates us in the market, obviously, and other things that logistical, right? We don't need any hardware. We are a native platform, and that means we can avoid the extra hops in the database and whatnot, right? So all your vulnerability information is within your perimeter, not going to a cloud environment. I hope that helps.
Yes, great. Okay, that's all the questions we have for today. So I just wanted to say thank you everyone for coming, and we hope to see you at future webinar events. If you do have any more questions, you can reach out to us at info@pathlock.com and we'd be happy to answer those. And with that, I'll end the webinar and just say thank you.